Culhane,
Here.
Stonebarger,
Here.
Stein,
Here.
Kays,
Here.
Douglas Johnson. Here. Olson, Hanson, Dolly, and Ford are absent. We have a quorum.
Okay, the first thing on the agenda is the approval of the minutes of August 24th, 2017. Do I have a motion? Mr. Tsine moves. Second
Second.
by Mr. Culhane. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Minutes pass. Number 2, applicant Shelley Thompson. Go ahead.
Applicant is Shelley Thompson. Property address is 1020 Oak Drive. Applicant seeks approval to operate a service business hair salon from her home located in the R1 Single Family Residential District per Section 21-14035 of the ordinance and contingent upon compliance with home occupations 21-7001, home occupation standards 21-702, and specific rules governing individual conditional uses, including but not limited to Section 21-0202, 2B6A through H. Staff finds that home occupations is a listed conditional use for the R1 Single Family Residential District per 21-14035, which is home occupations in accordance with Chapter 2170. The definition of home occupation is any occupation which is clearly secondary to the main use of the premises as a dwelling and does not change the character thereof or have any exterior evidence of such secondary use other than a non-illuminated sign not exceeding 400 square inches in area. The occupation shall be carried on or conducted only by the members of a family residing in the dwelling. The applicant submitted an attached written request, site plan, and floor plan, which reflect compliance or non-compliance with the following terms of the ordinance. Section 21-0202, 2B6A through H, the specific rules governing individual conditional uses include such things as ingress, egress of the property, off-street parking and loading, screening, buffering, signage, exterior lighting, required yards and open space, and general compatibility with the area. They included a site plan, which was in your agenda packet. Chapter 2170 is home occupations and standards. Thompson proposes to utilize 575 square feet or 14% of her single-family dwelling for her hair salon business. She has acknowledged by signature her assurance to comply with Chapter 2170. Signage is proposed to be limited to a sign on the side garage door as complying with ordinance. The off-street parking, I'm going to bring up her site plan. This is the basic site plan of the property. You saw the aerial view before, okay? Sufficient area exists for 4 legal off-street parking spaces. And just a note, to be counted as a legal off-street parking space, they must meet minimum size and location. And also you cannot have to move one car to get another car out. So sometimes people think they have more parking space than they do, but she has at least 4 parking spaces. At least 2 parking spaces, off-street parking spaces, are required just for the family. Chapter 2165 is outside storage and display requirements for specific uses. No outdoor storage of equipment or materials is suggested in this application, and no public display of goods. But the applicant will need to comply with Section 21702 of the outside storage and display requirements, and there was no issue there. The landscape and lighting standards, Chapter 2173, this property lacks, for your information, this property does lack some required boulevard trees. Actually, I'm not sure if there's a tree on the property at this time, which is required by ordinance. These things are required by ordinance to be as part of the development of the site. The minimum tree requirement is 1 tree per 50 feet of frontage. Okay, so if this board decides that they are generally in approval of this applicant, of this application, First of all, they must determine if the request shows satisfactory provision and arrangement concerning Chapter 2170 home occupations and standards and Section 210202, the specific rules governing conditional uses, and then chapters as discussed above, 2163, 2165, and 2173. If generally endorsed, this board may consider conditions of approval such as fulfillment of any lacking boulevard infrastructure requirements and any other conditions deemed appropriate for this secondary use.
Any comments from any of the neighbors that you're aware of?
No.
So how many trees are we lacking here?
Well, there should be one boulevard tree for every 50 foot of frontage according to the ordinance. And basically they can be either on the boulevard. Some boulevards are too narrow, and then they can be set back into the front yard if that is the case.
So that counts for a boulevard tree if they're set back in the yard?
It can.
Okay.
It appears that there are no trees anywhere in the development. Why are there no trees in the development?
That I don't know.
What does the
Well-
city do in regards to requiring trees of development? How do we ensure that trees are planted in the boulevard? What's the policy?
Well, currently, and for several years now, part of our building permit application, on the left side of the application, it reads down when a house is being built that boulevard trees are required.
Okay.
And they just weren't put in, and apparently
But
nobody.
So it's not part of the development agreement that the city approves when they're approving plats that trees are to be planted?
I don't think so, no.
Okay.
So how wide is the property?
This property is, I believe, it is, this one is 75 feet, or 85, excuse me.
Okay. With that, I'll open the public hearing. If anybody's here to speak for or against, please come up to the microphone and state your name.
My name is Shelley Thompson, and we just purchased this home in March, so there were no trees on the boulevard when we moved in, and we are happy to put trees in, so.
Okay. So the only signage, you're just going to have a sign on your garage door? Is it?
Right, yes.
And
I've
400
been doing
square
hair for
inches or-
35 years, so I have my clientele built up, and my partner is retiring, so that's why I want to put it in my home.
How many clients do you anticipate on a daily basis?
Well, I only have one at a time, so one is leaving, maybe one is coming. So the most I'd ever have is 2 vehicles at a time.
Would those vehicles park in the street?
In the
or
driveway.
In the driveway.
Mhm.
So you would not be adverse to planting some trees?
No, not at all. No. Each of our neighbors have a tree on each side of our property. I don't know if it shows that on there or not, but we'd be happy to plant one in the boulevard.
Any other questions for Shirley? With that, I'll close the public hearing and ask for a motion for discussion.
I'll make a motion to approve, subject to complying with the city's minimum standards for tree planting.
Mr. Kays makes a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Mr. Culhane, second it.
Just a thought, given the time of the calendar year.
Prior to June 1 of 2018.
Is that acceptable?
Second.
Okay.
So 85 feet, that would be 3 trees? 2 trees?
The building official determines
Every
that to be
fifth-
1 to 2 trees, so
1 to 2.
which, would you like to define that as 1 or 2?
I'll leave it at the discretion of the building official.
Okay.
Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item number 3, applicant Christy Maas. Me?
The applicant is Christy Maas. The property address is 1016 First Avenue Northeast. The applicant seeks approval to operate a service business beauty salon from her home located in the R2A Single Family Attached Residential District per Section 21-1804, 21-1603-1, and 21-1403-5, and contingent upon compliance with Chapter 2170 Home Occupations and Standards and specific rules governing individual conditional uses, including but not limited to Section 21-0202 2B6A through H. Staff finds that, again, I'll just read through these for this application. Home occupations is a listed conditional use for the R2A single-family attached residential district per 21-1804, 21-1603, and 21-1403-5. Home occupations in accordance with Chapter 2170. The definition of home occupation is any occupation which is clearly secondary to the main use of the premises as a dwelling and does not change the character thereof or have any exterior evidence of such secondary use other than a non-illuminated sign not exceeding 400 square inches in area. This occupation shall be carried on and conducted only by the members of a family residing in the dwelling. The applicant submitted the attached written request, site plan, and floor plan, which reflect compliance or non-compliance with the following terms of the ordinance. Section 21-0202 2B6A through H, specific rules governing individual conditional uses, is about ingress and egress to the property, off-street parking and loading, screening, buffering, signage, exterior lighting, required yards and open space, and general compatibility with the area. Chapter 2170, Home Occupations and Standards, Moss proposes to utilize 336 square feet, or 12% of her single-family dwelling for her beauty salon business. She has acknowledged by signature her assurance to comply with Chapter 21.7. No signage is proposed at this time. Chapter 2163, Off-Street Parking and Loading Requirements and Engineering Design Standards. Currently, there is designated area only one legal off-street parking space. To be counted as legal, again, I reiterate that there is a minimum size and location, and they have to allow for the exit of a vehicle without moving another vehicle. So a minimum of 2 off-street parking spaces are required just for the single-family dwelling, the principal use, and this board may require more as a condition of secondary uses such as home occupations. Outside storage and display requirements per 2165 and 21702. No outdoor storage of equipment or materials used in the home occupation shall be permitted. No public display of goods shall be allowed on the premises except inside the principal building. And this is okay with the applicant. The property is compliant with landscape and lighting standards in this case. So this board must determine if the request shows satisfactory provision and arrangement concerning Chapter 2170, Home Occupations and Standards, Chapter 210202 2B6A through H, specific rules governing conditional uses, and Chapters 2163, 2165, and 2173, which I just went over. If generally endorsed, this board may consider conditions of approval, such as improvement of more legal designated off-street parking spaces and/or any other conditions deemed appropriate for this secondary use. I do want to point out that in your agenda packet, there were actually 2 site plans submitted. The first one is basically what exists right now. The detached garage will be physically attached to the house by a breezeway. This being the house, here's the road. And she would like to do her business in this. And again, she meets the under 25%. The second site plan, this is the floor plan here of what she proposes to do to the garage, currently the garage space. This second site plan shows the garage being relocated over here behind to the south of the house and opening up some parking space. If you so choose to decide that that one would be the better one, I will let the applicant explain in more detail why they submitted the 2 site plans.
Jill, that garage is there existing now?
The garage, there is an existing garage right now, and it's hard to see, but it's back here. It's right here. And right now I believe they just have a deck but they would put a breezeway to physically attach this garage to the structure if approved.
So is that, I assume that the lines are not quite correct because it looks like the garage is overhanging the property?
Right. These are not correct.
So
Exactly.
it's probably right on the property line, or?
Actually, it's very close, but site plan submitted is a hand-drawn one. It is not exact, but do you have any idea approximately how far from the property line?
I know there's a big side.
There's
Not
a walk,
free.
like a sidewalk
Okay,
in between the garage
property
and
line.
the fence of, new gutters.
So there's probably at least 3-4 feet there right now.
Just as wide as a sidewalk.
Okay. With that, I'll open the public hearing if anybody speak for or against. Did any of the neighbors submit anything, Jill? Sorry.
No.
Okay. Yeah, public hearing's open if you want to come up and speak, please. State your name and.
My name is Christy Schmaling Moss. Remember me?
So you have two options, or we have two options. I was confused. You can either leave it like it is and utilize it, or you'd be willing to move it and utilize it.
Whatever would work the best for what you would approve, but
What's your preference?
someday he would like a garage. I bought the house my dad built, so it was built for him. If we
Well-
leave it where it's at, we can't access our backyard like when I was a kid, because now, like Casey Lawrence owns the back, that big apartment, and he has a garage for his stuff right there, so we can't really get into our backyard. So that's where we came up with number one, parking on the side, which I started at home doing hair, so I've been doing hair 25 years, so I kind of want to slow down, come home and do like one at a time. And right now I currently work in a walk-in salon, so I own it, but it's just too much. I want to retire back to home.
So if the garage,
So if we didn't move it, my husband was thinking if he ever wanted a garage someday, then we'd have to move it.
okay.
Otherwise, he just don't get a garage, which he was okay with too. But I think maybe.
Is there room, Jill, to put another detached building on that lot? Is there enough square footage?
I think I had talked to Ken about it once, and he thought so, because it's just a little single garage.
There is some room for another accessory structure back here.
So if the garage stays where it's at, then there's only one parking space, Jill? Is
Correct.
that correct?
Our driveway's really wide for two, I thought, though.
Well, yeah, according to what I interpolated off of this screen, their width of their driveway here, it isn't quite the width. It just doesn't meet our criteria.
Mhm.
It almost does, but not quite.
Because I know we park next to each other, but
Yeah. So if you were to move it,
then we'd have an extra parking back.
you'd have an extra parking place, and it'd be easier to
Yeah.
build a garage in the future.
Yeah.
Can I ask what your plan is after you would retire with that building that you're using as a salon? What do you anticipate the next owner would maybe do with that with a breezeway to it?
It could probably be like you can make it like a four-season room or something, or a family room. I mean, it would be for functions. Like me, I have tons of family.
How far apart
So-
are you thinking with that breezeway, with roof lines coming down?
I think they had to be
Within 10 feet, I think.
within 10 feet or something like that.
Yeah, if you want another garage, this one would have to be within 10 feet of the house.
Yep. Oh.
That's why we're gonna do the 10 feet.
So either way, it would work. I mean,
Mhm.
if we couldn't do a garage, that would be fine too. He can get a shop for a semi and stuff. But
Mike Moss to speak.
Go
I
ahead.
was just gonna point out that on the drawing, it really don't show very good, like right there. As far as the end of the parking area, we're gonna make it go back probably right about into there, so you can back, say somebody parks in there, you can back this way and drive out instead of trying to back out on First Avenue.
Mhm.
So it ain't gonna be like a cluster.
So would that be a pad big enough to park 2 cars on then?
Yeah.
We have a big yard.
Yeah, you have a long yard.
Yeah.
I just figured it'd be easier for her clients, because she's did it for 20-some years, and her clients are getting up there in age, to be able to, like, make the back up and then pull out instead of trying to back out and then back out on the busy road, and just make traffic flow a little easier and be a little safer for them guys.
Speaking as a selfish board member, if you'd move the garage, then we wouldn't have to worry about a non-compliant garage that's too close to the side of the adjoining property. But you know, I've never had an option here where we have 2 choices of what we're going to do. So it's. Any other comments? So you don't have a preference one way or the other, if you.
We just wanted to present both just in case one wasn't feasible for you to approve, then we would do either way. It doesn't matter.
Chairman, one thought might be that if you like this second option, that you could maybe approve that based on a timeline of so many years or something, that she could start her business as it is with the proposed breezeway. That might be an option.
Okay. Anybody else here to speak before public hearing? Any other questions for the Mazes? Well, that'll close the public hearing. Ask for a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve with the choice of either,
I guess this is option number 2. How's that? Option number 1 would be the other one.
well, yeah, I would say that, okay, I'll back up. I will make a motion to approve moving the building behind the house, and then giving them up to 5 years to move the building behind the house. Otherwise, they can leave it where it's at today with the breezeway, and then give them 5 years to move it. And then if you don't do it in 5 years, you got to come back to the board.
Okay.
Okay, I have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Mr. Colhane seconds it. Do you have any discussion?
She might decide in 5 years she doesn't want to cut hair.
Maybe I'll retire.
Yeah. And so that, if it's functional right now for you, and you see how it works, 18 months from now, you might decide, I really don't want to do this anymore, and I don't need to move that, go through the cost of moving that building.
Right. So in 5 years, we could move it without coming back and asking to move it, except getting a building permit or whatever.
Yeah, you would have to get a building permit.
You get a building, yeah, but you don't need to come see us.
Okay.
Any other comments? Seeing none, I would ask for motion to approve. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Against? Motion passes.
Thank you.
Yep. Do we have any old business, Jill?
No old business.
Then I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
Make a motion to adjourn.
Oh, no, I beat you to it. You can second though.
Second.
Mr. Stein and Mr. Colhane. All in favor, say aye. Aye. We're adjourned. Do we have some things to sign?
That's it. You
No.
signed it.
So you ready?
Let me just pull up
Okay.
the map here. And then we will be.
Yeah, Ron, is that enough?
Okay.
Okay, I'd like to call to order the Thursday, October 5th, 2017 meeting of the Watertown Plan Commission. Roll call, please.
Culhane,
Here.
Stonebarger,
Here.
Stein,
Here.
Kays,
Here.
and Olson, Hanson, and Dolly are absent.
So before I make a motion or request a motion to approve the agenda, do you want to add this to the agenda, or is this just for informational purposes?
Yeah, we can add that. It actually will just be new business as the information for the 2018 Plan Commission and Board of Adjustment schedule. And when I sent that out in the email, like I said, then next week we will ask for approval of it.
Next meeting, you mean?
Yeah, next
Not this
meeting,
one?
sorry.
Okay.
Yeah, not next week. We won't meet for that.
No, all right, thank you. In that case, could I get a motion to approve the agenda?
So,
Mr. Kays,
Second.
Mr. Culhane, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
New business?
And then just another side note for why we don't have the minutes on this agenda. We'll be having 2 minutes on the next agenda. We just didn't get it done. And I
Okay,
didn't really want to relive that meeting anyway.
okay.
We'll get there.
So North Lake Drive?
Okay, so today all we are having is discussion over North Lake Drive and Pheasant Lane, which, if you guys are familiar, is just straight north of North Lake Drive. So the background of this discussion item stems from the recent ordinance amendment to the RG Residential Garage District that was approved by City Council on March 20th, 2017. This amendment raised the maximum sidewall from 12 foot to 16 foot, revised the written consent percentage from 100% of all property owners owning property immediately adjacent to the proposed rezone to 55%, allowed connection to sanitary sewer, leaves the finishes for structures aesthetics to the building official's discretion, includes sidewall articulation language, and included provisions regarding the maximum size of the residential garage, that it shall not exceed 2,180 square feet or 30% of the lot area, whichever is greater. And so with this ordinance amendment, it prompted a rezone of the area of North Lake Drive. And this is an area that we anticipated this to happen. And Patrick Mahold rezoned his property adjacent to Grouse Street, which on the map here is this land. Let me make sure. That property there. No, not that property, sorry. Okay, so this property here, I'll highlight it. So Patrick Mahold rezoned his property adjacent to Grouse Street, which is adjacent to an unimproved platted right-of-way, being Grouse Street. With the rezone taking place and various other landowners along Pheasant Lane and North Lake Drive wanting to gain access to their properties, we are bringing this to you all for discussion on how to move forward. I guess just to start out with some ordinances that pertain to this area and trying to come up with how to move forward. In 216201, it states that all lots created after the effective date of this ordinance shall front upon a public street or an approved private street, and no building shall hereafter be erected or constructed except upon such a lot.
When were these lots created?
They were platted in 1981.
When was that section of the ordinance adopted?
That was 2011. That it was revised.
So these lots predate that ordinance.
Mm-hmm. And also how we go about things now when developments are platted, we have the development agreement, which binds the developer to improving the right-of-ways and building them to city standards and stubbing and all the infrastructure and utilities, which didn't get done here. So it's just now what we have too, I pulled up when this property was annexed, it stated that there will be no direct access to North Lake Drive by any of the lots in Block 1 through 5, and access shall only be by the designated streets on the said plat. So what we have going on there as well are private accesses onto private property. And so where there's actually a public right-of-way, people aren't able to gain access because there's trees in the way. And then, but they have their own, and they've historically been there. So it's kind of, I mean, do we make those go away and we make the designated access points and improve them?
So you have Grouse Street. How many other public right-of-ways do you have along that stretch?
There's Quail to the south, which has also proposed to be, it was proposed to be vacated a couple years back, if you guys remember that at all. But that was rejected. So Quail Street there, Grouse Street
Do you have any farther north?
here, and Antelope is slightly improved. There's one here midway, and then Antelope Street.
So that Midway one was between Antelope and Grouse?
Yeah. And I can't think of the name off the top of my head.
So there's
Elk or something.
at least 4 public right-of-ways that are full of trees and people can't utilize.
Right.
How many of those lots where they're not allowed to access North Lake Drive are being accessed off North Lake Drive?
Quite a few. And then, too, where there is access, then it's private property, so, I mean,
Can't
people
drive
can't
across
use
it.
them. Also, I guess I'll show you guys the little site INA of the area that I put together here, which it also might make you a little sick because it twists and everything, so just be cautious of that. It's a circle template. Okay, so this is where you enter Pheasant Lane from whatever that avenue is off of the highway up by the water tower. So what this picture is showing is that is looking to the east, and then this is when you turn onto it and you're looking to the south. So it's unobstructed, and this is actually an area where you can drive. Now this is the bend area of Pheasant Lane, and this is where a residential garage was rezoned. This property was rezoned, and then a residential garage was constructed, and that was built last year. But the access wasn't really an issue for them because Pheasant Lane is easily drivable to this area.
So is that tree sitting right away?
No, actually this post, I think, is the boundary. So then this area next is an access, but it's private.
Off of North Lake Drive?
Yeah, yep. Yeah, so that picture was looking south, west-ish. And then this is what it turns into when you want to go southwest. So you can't, there's trees in the way, and so you can't continue. So then that would also prompt people to go through that private access, which is also posted private property and whatnot. But it's also hard to turn around in that area. This is Antelope Lane. this next picture. So this is looking south towards North Lake Drive. This is looking west. And then this is looking back east. And there's a house and a garage on each side of Antelope Lane.
And they access that, and they have direct access to North Lake Drive?
Mm-hmm.
Are those one of those lots 1 through 5 that said that they can't do that?
Well, actually, it's improved enough. It's actually gravel, so, and it is through the public right of way of Antelope Lane. So, and they are off of Antelope Lane. They don't have direct access onto North Lake Drive. This area is just looking west, just showing the conditions of the driving route. Like I said, it's twists around here. Again, this is west. Now, this is close to the city. This is the city's land right here, and then this is Grouse Street. And actually we'll look into that a little later, because this is an opening, so this would be an area where access could be. Grouse Street is actually all completely covered by trees, so that they'd have to be removed for people to be able to get through
So
there.
you're saying that opening is on city land?
I'm not sure. We'll look on the GIS after. Okay, and then this is down by Quail Street. This is actually where Quail Street would go, and there's,
Is this where Bruce Hested's property's at?
yep. So, and we can look too after we're done with these and see how he's expanded his property through the right of way. So where Quill Street would run would separate his two properties, which he uses as a farmstead. So then this next picture is showing where he had proposed in the past to move the right of way, which is what he uses currently as an access onto North Lake Drive. And here you can see that's a pickup, and then the opening. And then this next picture is just showing the road connecting to the county road of 66th Street, which is actually an okay road for the area. Okay, so now let's look at where that opening was. This public right-of-way would be open. And so that picture that was taken was here. And is where I believe they vacated that right-of-way and then moved it over to where grouse currently exists and is shown on this map. The reason for vacating it, and I can't recall what year it was, but it was the contour of the road or of the land, and then where it wasn't as visible for people
Was
to be
that too
pulling
close
out.
to a hill or something like that?
Yeah.
Okay.
So they thought moving it more to the west would make it safer.
So presently, all of these lots, or a majority of these lots, are currently zoned R1 or R1G, or what's the zoning?
Yeah, most of them are still zoned R1, but then now the trend has been to zone them RG. And another challenge for this area is that water and sewer are difficult to get in there because I believe they need a lift station for the sewer.
We need a new water tower, don't we?
Yeah. Yep, and they need a water tower because right now, so the sewer is the blue line here. It runs to Pat Mahold's property and then comes down into and runs on private property. And then it comes back up into North Lake Drive and into Antelope Lane. So it would have to be, then it could be extended along Pheasant Lane.
And
to
that's
the
all
west.
force main around the lake? That's pretty much all force main around the lake?
I'm actually not sure. Mark, would you know at all?
There's a lot of force mains. I don't know if that is right there, but most of the lake is.
Yeah.
And then, yeah, water, there's a fire hydrant there on Pheasant Lane where it showed in that red dot. So, but it would be quite the undertaking, especially for the fact that there's only platted lots on the south side. It would be more desirable if there were platted lots on the north side as well to do a full standard city street and be able to serve them with sewer and water. But it's just a challenging area.
So, where your stick is at right there. It's a private lot owned by whomever, and it's zoned R1, and it's been a plat that's been approved by the city, and now I want to build a house on that R1 lot. How do I? What's this process? How does the city react to that request?
Yeah,
No,
that's the question because
You can't get to it right now.
and right now we've just been approached. I mean, we've been approached by 3 different people just about the residential garage issue, and they used to not be able to have water and sewer connected to their garages because then it becomes an enforcement issue where then they could potentially live in their shed house. And but when we amended the ordinance, then we allowed them to connect. So, and that's not even the issue that we're at right now. It's just how do we get back to our lots?
Is it Doc Howard that owns the property on the other side?
Yep.
So did was this complicated by the fact that for the longest time nobody ever thought that the north side of that road would ever be developed, so that's why the RGs and the R1s for garage purposes only were built on the south side of the road? It seems to me that's kind of what the deal was, wasn't it, John?
Well, they had a master plan for the whole area, and I don't know the history of why it fell through and why only these lots were platted as R1, especially with not being able to be served with sewer and water. And the water tower was a known thing, and that's, I think, kind of a reason why that development didn't end up going forward.
I think at one time the lake residents wanted to buy the land across the lake so they could control, or across the road so they could control it. I think that was plotted, but nobody ever envisioned that sewer would be such a problem. But
Right.
it was plotted, so. Now, how do we get access? You know, is it up to the city to, it's a right of way? Is it up to the city to clean out the right of way? Is it up to the residents to put in the road? What do you do?
Well, and we wouldn't want, I feel like if we move forward with clearing out the access points, then the other accesses need to go away. And with direction, I don't think the city would be opposed to cleaning out those trees, but then where we heard too is some people were uncomfortable with allowing access or clearing the trees and then letting them in there, and there's significant grade issues and then bike trails as well, where if people are driving over it and it's not improved at all, do we want that either?
It would probably be safer if we had limited access on the north side of that road. Right now, we've got a bunch of illegal access that people are probably pulling out, and people aren't used to at least looking there. If we
Right.
had, 4 entrances, I think that'd be better than.
Has the city explored a street assessment project for Pheasant Lane? Because unless Doc Howard wants to develop the north side of that Pheasant Lane, and you're not going to be able to do it on a piecemeal basis, all the individual landowners to construct even a 20-foot road or something on the backside. Is that something that staff has talked about, thought about?
Yeah, that's been an option that's been tossed around too. But they would have to agree with the assessment project. And I don't know that they all would be in favor of that.
But for all practical purposes, I would own property that I have no use of that property through a regulatory reasoning of the city. And so theoretically, legal counsel, there could be some sort of a takings issue there.
You phrase the question so that the answer must be yes. Because by saying is there a legal takings issue, yeah, there's an issue. But whether they would succeed or not is something else entirely.
With respect to the property that was zoned RG and the R1 with effectively just garages on them, did they have the covenants with respect to if there was ever a street developed in there that they would be subject to, their portion of that, or did they?
Like if they did a waiver of right to protest?
Right.
No. And that's the route too. So are you guys okay with a gravel road? It's usually if there's a improved right-of-way, it needs to be built to city standards with asphalt, concrete, or curb and gutter.
I think that would be a little premature right now, because I could live with a gravel access and allow those people to, if it slowly develops, give them a waiver right to protest that at some point in time it would have to be upgraded to a, asphalt surface with curb and gutter. But just even a 10-foot wide gravel trail would be better. At least they get access to their property.
Is there?
How do you pay for it? I don't know.
Is there a way that, what's the number of lots that you have along that area that right now we say there's no access to North Lake Drive, but if there were a way that you can make other access points through shared access of lots, would be another option as well, right?
Onto North Lake Drive?
Yeah. I mean, we're saying no access to North Lake Drive.
You mean shared access is, you can come across my property to...
Yeah.
So to obtain some access easements?
An access easement across 4 lots, you determine what's a reasonable amount of access points to North Lake Drive from this development, and then decide that these 4 lots go here, these 4 lots go here, and if maybe it's every 250 feet, there's an access point like a block.
Mm-hmm.
And then you let people get access across the front. It might be another way where the cost of developing a Pheasant Lane would be minimized. If you're looking for ideas.
Yeah. So another idea could be that you obtain access easements over the existing accesses, because they're drivable, and they're not, like, the areas that are platted right-of-ways have significant grade issues where you can't even get down from North Lake Drive to them, or even from Pheasant Lane. They're just kind of bad placement. So if the accesses that are there are usable and they could be improved somewhat too, would we want to go that route?
That would take an agreement of the current property owners, right?
Yeah.
So you'd have to go out and see what their interest is, huh?
And then the other opposite end of the argument is, if we don't have water and sewer capacity, do we want to be encouraging development out there as well?
Kind of hard to say you can own a lot, but you can't get to it.
Or you can own the lot, but to get a building permit, you have to front an improved street.
You got to put in 300 feet of street or something. That'd be...
Yeah.
How many different landowners are there? Maybe most of those lots are owned by a few people.
That's kind of the case.
But those people want to be able to sell those lots too.
But it'd be easy to get an access agreement if only a handful of people own it and they want to sell them off.
True.
So that could be starting point.
That would be an option. Yeah. But I think the city's kicked this around a long time and said, oh, yeah, we got a road, but we don't really want to have a road there. And we have lots, but they're plotted, but we, don't have access to them. So I think at some point in time, we have to do something.
Mhm. And I guess we didn't really talk about gravel roads extensively. What's your thoughts on that?
It's all based upon the amount of traffic that's going to be on those gravel roads, how long, how they're built. There are lots of small towns in South Dakota that have lots of gravel roads, and if it's something that's going to be only, this would be less than a local street. No one's going to be saying, oh, let's go drive down Pheasant Lane tonight, hon.
We still have some gravel roads in other parts of the town, too. I wouldn't be opposed to
I think you need to claw back, though, as far as at some point in time they do need to be improved.
They would all have signed some waiver right to protest that they would put in their portion of the street when time came.
Right, when it warrants improvement to city standards. And that would probably be when the water and sewer issue were figured out.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, there's no sense putting down an asphalt driveway if I'm going to be sticking water and sewer lines and have to tear it up to do that.
Yeah.
I want to just shout out. Mark Meyer, Watertown Utilities. The only other thing I could think of is with developing, they're only going to be required to develop to the center line, right? So Doc Howard would technically be required to develop the north side, which
If he wants to bring it into the city.
Right,
If
but
he
you
keeps
could
it in the
probably
county,
only develop
yeah.
half a street.
Right.
It'd be like 14th Avenue.
So if you pursue access over private land, talk to the landowners, is that direction that you're looking for, or are you looking for a different direction, or?
Any direction is good direction at this point. But I think I'll take down option one will be talk to the landowners about the historical access points throughout and try to get easements, and then allowing people to get to their property through there. And then option two would be exploring a gravel street.
Yeah. Option two, we could clean out our existing right-of-ways, and
Yeah.
even though that probably is more construction than
Mm-hmm.
we would like.
And then quite a bit of grading to be done with the bike trail and North Lake Drive.
Mhm.
So I'm good with that.
Okay.
So we got somewhere.
So any other, do you want to, you're going to bring this up next meeting, the agenda, or the next
Yep.
year's?
Yep,
okay.
so just take some time and look at your schedules. If there's anything that you see right away, I know people planning a year out is not the norm. So, and it's fine. If it's a last minute thing, just give us a call. And just a heads up is nice if you can't make a meeting, just so we can make sure we always have a quorum. But other than that,
Okay. Any old business?
Before you move on from even the consideration of Pheasant Lane, because Todd asked the question the way he did, I've got to illustrate it's not really a conflict of interest, but I want full disclosure on my answer. Can you zoom it out?
I apologize.
I should have zoomed out more.
Okay. These lots from here to here which front an undeveloped road are owned by my wife and myself. And you asked the question, and that implicates those lots.
We'll treat those lots separately, I'm sure.
Thank you, Vince.
Okay, is there any other old business?
Nope.
Executive session?
Nope.
Is there a motion to adjourn? Mr. Stein?
Second.
Mr. Culhane? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
We are adjourned.